Hello again, and welcome to IELTS with Ralph, dear lovely IELTS candidates. Well, today we're going to cover Task 1, Academic Writing, and we're going to focus on bar chart. Well, I find that so many IELTS candidates have difficulty and they're struggling with writing a report on bar chart, especially when that bar chart is comparative graph. And today we will analyze comparative graphs, and we will talk about how to write a very good introduction, overview paragraph, and detailed paragraph. So I'm pretty sure that by the end of this video, you will definitely be able to write a very good and well-structured report on bar chart. So first, take a look at our chart here and the question. So the chart below shows the expenditure of two countries on consumer goods in 2010. Expenditure of two countries. So this is a sample comparative graph. So what is comparative graph? So as you remember, in other bar charts we practiced so far, it is about a duration of time, and that is what we mean by trend graph. But here, our chart is comparative. It means we have to compare data here, all right? And there is no date. So the horizontal line is France, two countries, France and UK, the UK. And the vertical line is about pounds, all right? So there is no date here. This is comparative graph. We should compare data for both countries and at the same time different categories. So this is the expenditure in consumer goods by France and UK. What we do first is start writing, let's say, our introduction paragraph, the first paragraph. In writing our introduction paragraph, we paraphrase the question. We restate the question. So first of all, we read the question again. The chart below shows the expenditure of two countries on consumer goods in 2010. Because the name of the countries, the two countries, are not included here, so we can include in our introduction. Instead of shows, the chart below shows, we can omit below, right? So we can write the chart. Instead of shows, we can write illustrates. Illustrates the expenditure. Instead of expenditure, we can write the amount of money spent. Instead of two countries, we can write, and on consumer goods, we can write on 5 consumer goods, and in parentheses, we can write the name of those categories or consumer goods: cars, computers, books, perfume, and cameras in France and the UK in 2010. Let's read introduction again. The chart illustrates the amount of money spent on 5 consumer goods: cars, computers, books, perfume, and cameras in France and the UK in 2010. This is a very good introduction paragraph. We restate the question. We use some synonym words here, all right? And also, it is nothing extra is included here, and it's completely to the point, all right? Now, let's just start writing our overview paragraph. In writing our overview paragraph, we should write about the most and the least. So, let's take a look. What is the most? The most is related to the cars, all right? Cars, as you can see, for both countries, they dominated the leading consumer, let's say, product. Right? So we, in overview paragraph, we start with writing about the most, which is cars. And what about the least? The least, as you can see, is cameras. So cameras for France, and perfume for the UK. That's it. In writing our overview paragraph, we start with the most and the least. Okay, so start writing our overview paragraph here. On the whole, we can start our overview paragraph with a lot of phrases. There are a lot of phrases that you can start, but one thing that I've included here is on the whole. On the whole, cars dominated. Dominate is a good choice here. Dominated as the leading consumer product in both the UK and France in the given period. All right? And after this, we should write about the least. Additionally, perfume and cameras occupied the bottommost positions. It's a good word here. Bottommost positions in the UK and France, respectively. Again, this word is good here, respectively. But why I have included respectively here? Because by using respectively, it means that perfume refers to the UK and cameras refers to France. All right, that's it. That's our overview paragraph. We only talked about the most, the dominant, and the least dominant, or the least, let's say, consumer product. Now, let's start writing our first detailed paragraph. So, the easiest way to categorize data here is, I've seen that some candidates make it easy for themselves, and they write about, for example, one paragraph is writing about France, and the other paragraph is writing about the UK. But this is not a good way to categorize data, because you have to compare. And by comparing, you have to compare both countries. So if you write one paragraph only about France, so there is no chance for you to compare both countries. Okay? So what we do here is in our third paragraph, we write about cars and computers, actually about the most, right? And in our fourth paragraph, we write about books, perfume, and cameras. So we always start our third paragraph writing about the most dominant. And the most dominant here is cars and computers. All right, we start our third paragraph with writing about cars. All right, so let's take a look at cars. As you can see, for French, the French population spent around 400,000 pounds on cars, all right? While, as you can see, British spending was more than, let's say, France, and it was around 70,000 pounds, all right? And for France, the spending on, let's say, computers was around 380,000 pounds, while for England, that was lower, around 300,000 pounds. All right? So this is my third paragraph. Let's start writing it. Categorically, the French population spent 400,000 pounds on cars, while the British exceeded, it means that it was more than this expense, exceeded this expense by about 70,000 pounds. This is a very good word. So I write about the difference. I could also write, for example, it was around for, let's say, 170,000, but I write about the difference here, all right, by about 70,000 pounds. So the British exceeded this expense by about 70,000 pounds. Now, the same thing is about computers, as you can see. On the other hand, the French spent a total of about 380,000 pounds on computers. So the difference is 30,000, all right? which was 30,000 pounds more than what the British spent. So instead of writing about, let's say the exact number of the money spent, the amount spent, so we just write about the difference in number. Okay, so, and that shows the examiner that you're able to, let's say, talk about different ways of analyzing data here. Now, let's start writing our paragraph 4. Here, we should talk about books, perfume, and cameras. So here I start with books. And as you can see, for France, that was 300,000 pounds. When the data is clear, so we don't write around because it's clear, it's 300,000 pounds, right? And at the same time, for the UK, that was a little over, as you can see, it's a little bit over 400,000 pounds. And what about perfume? As you can see, perfume, France expended 200,000 pounds, and Britain was very close, right? And spending on cameras for France was around 150 pounds, and for UK, that was around, let's say, 370,000 pounds. Now let's start writing our 4th paragraph. Moving on to other categories, you can start your 4th paragraph because you want to refer to other categories here. You can write this phrase, moving on to other categories. France invested 300,000 pounds in books, whereas the British invested a little over 400,000 pounds, a little over 400,000 pounds. Now, if we want to change the category here, if we want to talk about perfume here, you can start with a phrase like in terms of. In terms of perfume, France expended 200,000 pounds while, so in my previous sentence I used whereas, now here I use while, Britain was close behind. It's a good word here, it's a good phrase. When the data for both countries are very close, so we can write close behind. It means that it was a little bit lower than France, close behind. Lastly, because I'm talking about the last category here, in the UK spent nearly 370,000 pounds on cameras, while France only spent about 150,000 pounds. All right, as you can see, we analyzed all the data here. We talked about the differences. We talked about the number of the amount of spending for both countries and all the categories. And our category was not, let's say, based on the countries. We did not divide our 2 paragraphs talking about one country and the other country. We categorized data based on consumer goods here. And this is a good way to actually compare data. Always remember, the easiest way for candidates is just, for example, write about one country in one paragraph and another country in the other paragraph. So that is not a good way. You have to compare data and compare both countries in each of your paragraph. All right, that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this part and has been really helpful to you. Until next session, next episode, stay tuned, enjoy your time, and bye-bye.